Previously, Bobby Fischerman, Average Joe, and Peter Potzer escaped the bear and continued to head south towards the Enchanted Gardens. As they were approaching the outskirts of the Enchanted Gardens, they noticed an old cabin with a sign in front of it. The sign said, "Welcome, solve a puzzle for food." Now, at this point, the fishermen hadn't eaten since their adventure began and they were starving. They decided to knock on the door and see if they could solve the puzzle to get some food. A friendly old woman opened the door and said, "Would you like to try a puzzle? I have a feast in here waiting for you, but only if you can solve this puzzle." The fisherman said, "Absolutely, let's see it." So here's the position the old woman presented them with. She said, "It's white to play. White's pawns are going forward in this direction. How does white win the game?" Now, before I tell you what the fisherman said, if you would like to pause and try to figure it out on your own at home, go ahead and do that now. Well, if you had a chance to look at that, here's what the fishermen were discussing. It's a very interesting position because even though white has three pawns to black's one pawn, they're tripled pawns, and every single one of them is blockaded by this black pawn over here. So this is kind of the key. If white could somehow capture that, well, then you'd be able to push these and get a queen. But if you can't figure out a way to do that, you're not going to be able to make any progress. And the immediate attempt of bishop to b8, just trying to capture that pawn, doesn't work because black simply plays king to f1. And notice how white's king is stuck in the corner and the bishop is defending the pawn. And what are you going to do? Now, you could try to just waste a move and then eventually bring your king around. But the other problem here is that black's king is always going to be able to box you out. Even if you kept trying to run up the board, notice how black's king is always kind of one step ahead of white's, not really letting you get over to the pawns. And once black gets over here, he's going to gobble up these pawns with his king. So this is kind of the problem with the position. But what Bobby pointed out is that there's an amazing move that you have here, or it's not really an amazing move, it's an idea, and it starts with a particular move. And the move is bishop to c7. Now, at first glance, this looks like a really weird move. Why would we want to go there? Well, after king to f1, you can see the idea. What's white's next move? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, the move is bishop to b6. Now, at first glance, you might be thinking, wait a second, aren't we just giving up our bishop for free? Well, no, we're not, because if black takes this, we are very happy because now our pawn can push by and get a queen, and black's bishop, of course, is blocked off by their own pawn. So we're not worried about that. But the other thing you might be saying is, Nelson, you're not actually attacking the pawn because if you ever try to take it, the bishop is still there to take you. So what did we actually accomplish by going here? Well, the interesting thing about this move is that it creates some tension between these two bishops. So notice how if black doesn't do something, we're going to take the bishop. But also notice black has to do something. They don't want to move the king away because then we would just take their bishop. But what black can do is the move bishop to f2. And essentially what black is saying is if you take my bishop now, I'm going to take, and white has the same problem as before. The king is boxed out, and it's always going to be black's king that makes it over here first to start gobbling up the pawns. Something like king to d4. Let's see, what does Stockfish say? King c4. Yeah, this should do it. King c5. And you're in time to just take all the pawns, and nobody can win. Okay? So that's kind of the issue if we just take this with our bishop. I already mentioned we can't take the pawn here. So what can we do as white? If you'd like to pause and think through, what could the idea be? Well, if you had a chance to do that, the move is king to h2. Now, you may have been able to come up with this move because it's kind of the only move that we could play. But why is that the idea? Well, it's actually the fascinating start to a sequence of moves that will repeat a pattern. I've talked about this in the channel a while ago on a different puzzle. It was called the staircase maneuver. And I believe in that particular puzzle, it was with the queen. And the queen had to do this little dance of like up, down, up, down, up, down, and it kind of marched up the board. And it was the only way to win. And we're going to see that exact type of idea here, except with the king. So watch this very carefully. Black's bishop is under attack. Black has to move somewhere. But if they just sort of move the bishop like this, well, then we just take it and we get a free bishop. They don't want to do that, obviously. If they move it away from this diagonal, well, then they're no longer defending the pawn. And we would simply take the pawn, move our bishop, and we get a queen. So they don't want to do that either. If they go check, well, our king is there, so we just take it. So what can black do? Well, there's only one move, and it's this move king to e2. So they have to make a king move that continues to defend the bishop. And now what we're going to do as white is play king to g2. And again, we are attacking the bishop. And again, black has to make a decision. Okay, what do I do? And if you look carefully, the only thing they can do is go bishop to e3 because that's the only safe square for the bishop. If you come over here, it just gets captured. If you come anywhere up here, it just gets captured. You know, of course, we don't want to take this because once white recaptures, one of these pawns is going to become a queen. And also, like I mentioned, if you move off of this diagonal here or here, you lose the pawn like this. So again, the only thing black can do is go here. And now I'm going to play the next couple of moves quickly so you can see the pattern. But watch this. The king goes up. The king goes over. King attacks. The only thing for black to do is move the bishop up. We go up. The king goes over. We attack. The only thing for black to do is go bishop c5. So you see all of those moves were like forced. So you get this really interesting pattern of we go up, black goes over, we attack, black goes up, boom, 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 until we get this position. Again, we repeat it, and now the pattern breaks because there's a pawn controlling that square. The black king can no longer continue going where it would like to. It has to step to the side. And now we can attack it again, and black has one final trick here, bishop to g1. What should we play now as white? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, hopefully you didn't say capture the bishop, because now what's different than before? Well, now black's king is in position to start gobbling up our pawns. And you might say, but Nelson, that's fine. We have 3 pawns. What's the big deal? If they take a couple, who cares? I'll show you exactly what the problem is. King takes a5. And yes, we can capture this pawn, but then king takes a6. And what do you notice about this position? We've talked about this before on the channel in previous puzzle videos. This is the wrong color bishop to escort this pawn to become a queen. Yes, we can save our bishop. Well, actually, you can't even save the pawn. But even if you could save the pawn, I mean, black can just take it if they want. But even if you could, black can go here, and the game is still a draw. All black has to do is stick the king in the corner, go back and forth. There's no way that we can win because we can never force the king out of the corner because this is the bad bishop. I talked about that a couple videos ago, right? So it's the same idea. So that's black's trick going back here. We can't take that. We can't allow black's king to go and gobble up our pawns. So what's the winning move for white? Well, it's king to c6. And essentially the same kind of deal. We just kept moving our king over, right? And eventually we end up on c6. And finally, black is kind of out of ideas. They could take the pawn, but then we simply go to b7. And once we are supporting this pawn, now we are good to go, and we're actually threatening to take the bishop. For example, if the king comes here, we take the bishop. We're not worried about our pawns getting captured because we've got this one defended. We simply take, and we win. Wow. What a puzzle. That's fascinating stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I really love these puzzles when there's like these cool patterns that you just don't see except in these kind of composed puzzles. So this one was from Mark Liburkin. He's got some incredible puzzles, and this one was no exception. All right, having successfully solved the puzzle, the fishermen were fed and went on their way and entered the Enchanted Gardens, which we will pick up next time. As always, stay sharp, play smart, and take care.